Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive, and this time we're tackling something that, I've been seeing a lot of buzz about lately.
Oh, yeah.
Electrostimulation for managing high blood pressure.
Interesting.
Yeah, we actually got a listener request to dig into this a little bit, and, I've been seeing some articles pop up here and there.
Huh.
So we decided to take a look at a transcript from the Health Tech Insights podcast. They were talking all about this device called the ABP051 blood pressure corrector. And it's supposed to use like these little zaps of electricity to help, regulate your blood pressure.
Oh, wow. So like a little jolt to keep things in check.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to try to unpack, what makes this different from a typical blood pressure monitor, what kind of results are people seeing, and of course the big question is it actually safe?
Yeah, safety is definitely top of mind with something like
For
this.
sure. So to kick things off, maybe we could start with like the basics. How does electrostimulation actually work to help manage blood pressure?
So it's kind of like, well, it's all about working with your body's natural systems. The ABP051 uses these tiny electrical impulses, and they're targeted at specific nerves, particularly on the wrist.
Oh, interesting. So it's not like a full body jolt or anything?
No, no, nothing like that. It's very localized, and the goal is to stimulate blood circulation and improve something called vascular tone.
Vascular tone. I'm not familiar with that.
So basically, it's how well your blood vessels can constrict and relax.
Oh, okay. So like how flexible they are.
Exactly. And good vascular tone is super important for healthy blood pressure.
So is that what makes this different from just a regular blood pressure monitor?
Yeah, that's the key difference. A regular monitor just tells you what your blood pressure is at that moment, but the ABP051 actually tries to influence your blood pressure, actively.
Oh, I see. So instead of just giving you the numbers, it's like it's giving your system a little nudge in the right direction.
That's a great way to put it, like a little coach for your blood vessels.
I like that. But, whenever I hear about using electricity for something like this, my first thought is always, is this safe?
Right. I totally get that. It does sound a little intense.
Yeah, like zapping your wrist to control your blood pressure.
Yeah, but the podcast we looked at, they addressed that directly, and they said that when it's used correctly, this type of electrostimulation is considered both safe and painless.
Okay, that's reassuring to hear. But of course, with any new technology, there's always potential risks.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so important to talk to your doctor before trying something like this.
Exactly. They can help you weigh the potential benefits and risks and see if it's a good fit for you.
Exactly. It's all about personalized healthcare.
And it's probably a good time to remind everyone that this isn't about throwing out your current blood pressure management plan.
Definitely not. This is meant to work alongside those existing strategies, like medication, lifestyle changes, regular checkups, all that stuff.
Right, it's like adding another tool to your toolbox.
Exactly. Not a replacement for everything else.
Okay, so it's not a magic cure-all, but it could potentially be a helpful addition to your overall strategy.
Right. And speaking of strategy, the podcast mentioned that some people are seeing pretty fast results with this.
Yeah, they said some users reported noticeable improvements in just 14 days.
Right. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. But, of course, everyone's different and, individual results can vary.
For sure. But that kind of speed of improvement is definitely something to pay attention to.
Absolutely. It could be a game changer for some people, especially those who maybe haven't found relief with other methods.
Right. Or for people who have trouble sticking with traditional treatments.
Yeah, that makes sense. So 14 days is a pretty short time frame. What do you think contributes to those rapid results?
Well, that's something researchers are still trying to fully understand. It could be that the electrostimulation triggers a bunch of positive effects, not just on the blood vessels, but also on other systems in the body that play a role in regulating blood pressure.
Oh, that's interesting. So it might be like a ripple effect throughout the body.
Yeah, exactly. There's definitely more research needed to figure out all the details.
For sure. Well, this whole concept of using electrostimulation to tap into our body's natural healing abilities is pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is, and it makes you wonder what other areas of health this technology could be applied to.
Right. Like if it can work for blood pressure, could we see electrostimulation devices for managing chronic pain or improving sleep or even enhancing cognitive function?
Those are some really intriguing questions, and the fact that this technology is non-invasive and pretty much painless makes it even more appealing for a wide range of health concerns.
Yeah, definitely. But before we get too carried away with all the possibilities, maybe we should take a closer look at how the ABP031 actually differs from a traditional blood pressure monitor.
Good point. We've been talking about it as this active player in managing blood pressure, but how does that compare to a monitor that just passively takes readings?
Yeah, that's a good question because we're used to thinking of blood pressure monitors as just, giving us information.
Right. It's like they're just observers.
But this is more like an active participant.
Exactly. And that's a really important distinction. A regular monitor just tells you what your blood pressure is at that moment, but the ABP 051 is actually trying to influence your blood pressure in real time.
Oh, okay, so it's not just measuring, it's actually trying to change it.
Exactly. Think of it like this. You know when you're driving and you look at your speedometer?
Yeah,
That's like a regular blood pressure monitor. It's giving you information.
okay.
But then when you use the gas pedal to adjust your speed, that's more like the ABP 051. It's allowing you to actually control the situation.
Okay, that's a really helpful analogy. So with the ABP 051, you're not just passively observing your blood pressure, you're actually taking an active role in regulating it throughout the day.
Exactly. And that's what makes this technology so potentially powerful.
It's pretty incredible when you think about it. But what's it actually like to use this device? Is it like some big clunky contraption?
Not at all. Actually, from what I understand from the podcast, it's designed to be pretty user-friendly. It's basically a wristband, kind of like a smartwatch.
Oh, wow, so it's not like a bulky medical device.
No, it's meant to be discreet and comfortable to wear, and it delivers those mild electrical impulses right to your wrist.
Okay, so if it's just a wristband, does that mean you wear it all the time?
Well, it's designed for extended wear, but there are specific instructions on how often and at what intensity to use it.
Right, of course, it's not just like a free-for-all zapping session.
Exactly. It's important to follow the instructions carefully and talk to your doctor to make sure you're using it safely and effectively.
Okay, so you wouldn't just buy this online and start experimenting with it.
No, definitely not. It's a medical device, so it needs to be used under the guidance of a healthcare professional.
That makes sense. So if this is still a relatively new technology, are there certain types of hypertension patients who might benefit more from it than others?
You know, it's a really good question, and to be honest, it's one that researchers are still trying to answer. More clinical data and long-term studies are needed to figure out how different patient profiles respond to this type of treatment. It's still early days.
Right, so it's really about individualizing the approach and seeing what works best for each person.
Exactly, and that's where having those conversations with your doctor is so important.
Absolutely. Well, it's hard not to get excited about the potential of this technology. Imagine a world where people could actively support healthy blood pressure throughout the day, potentially even reducing the risk of complications.
It's a pretty compelling vision, right?
Yeah. And those early reports of people seeing improvements in just 14 days, it just adds to the excitement.
It does. Of course, we have to be careful not to get too carried away with the hype. Individual results will always vary, but that speed of improvement could be a huge factor for some people.
Absolutely. Especially for those who maybe haven't had success with other treatments.
Right. It could be a game changer for them.
While we're on the topic of potential, I have a question that's been bugging me. We've been talking about how electrostimulation impacts blood pressure. But are there any effects on other parts of the body? Like, could stimulating those nerves in the wrist trigger some kind of ripple effect elsewhere?
That's a fascinating question. And to be honest, I don't have a definitive answer. It certainly makes you think, though, right? If we're stimulating nerves that are part of this larger network, could there be unintended consequences? Positive or negative?
Right. It's like opening a Pandora's box of possibilities. We might be focusing on blood pressure, but who knows what other doors this technology could unlock.
I love that analogy. It really highlights how complex the human body is and how much we still have to learn. But that's what makes exploring these new frontiers in health tech so exciting. It's about asking questions, delving into the unknown, and embracing the potential while also being aware of the need for careful research and ethical considerations.
It's a reminder that science is always evolving.
Absolutely. It's a journey, not a destination.
Well said. So let's bring it back to electrostimulation and hypertension for now. We've covered a lot of ground from the science behind it to the potential benefits and even touched on some of the broader implications. But there's one big question I still have, and I bet our listener is wondering the same thing.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's the question?
We know this technology is promising, but is it actually accessible? Who can benefit from it right now? And what are the next steps if someone's interested in exploring electrostimulation as part of their hypertension management?
Those are all excellent questions, and I think they deserve a deep dive all on their own. Availability, cost, individual suitability, these are all factors that need to be considered carefully. And that's where having open communication with your healthcare provider is so crucial. They can help you navigate those complexities, assess your specific needs, and guide you toward making informed decisions.
I think that's a perfect segue into the final part of our deep dive today. We've explored the what, the why, and the how of electrostimulation for hypertension. Now it's time to address the so what. What does this all mean for you, the listener, and how can you take this newfound knowledge and apply it to your own health journey? Welcome back, everyone. It's great to have you with us again as we continue our deep dive into electrostimulation for managing high blood pressure.
It's definitely been a fascinating conversation so far.
Yeah, I agree. And before the break, we were talking about how the ABP 051 device is designed to be pretty user-friendly, like a wristband.
Right, kind of a smartwatch.
Exactly. So it sounds like it's not this big, bulky medical device that's uncomfortable to wear.
No, not at all. It's designed to be discreet, and you can wear it for extended periods.
Okay, so if it's like a wristband, does that mean you just wear it all the time?
Well, it is designed for extended wear, but there are specific instructions on how often to use it and at what intensity.
Okay, so it's not like you just strap it on and forget about it.
Right? It's important to follow the instructions and consult with your doctor to make sure you're using it correctly.
Right, of course. It's still a medical device.
Exactly. It's not just a fashion accessory.
That makes sense. So since this technology is still relatively new, I'm wondering, are there certain types of hypertension patients who might benefit more from it than others?
That's a really interesting question. And to be honest, it's something that researchers are still investigating. More clinical data and long-term studies are needed to fully understand how different patients respond to this type of treatment.
So it's kind of like we're still in the early stages of figuring out who it works best for?
Exactly. It's early days, but the potential is definitely there.
Right. And it's all about finding what works best for each individual.
Absolutely. And that's why those conversations with your healthcare provider are so important.
Definitely. Well, it's hard not to get excited about the possibilities here. Imagine a world where people could actively support healthy blood pressure throughout the day and potentially reduce the risk of complications.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
And those early reports we talked about earlier, some people seeing improvements in just 14 days. It's really encouraging.
It is. Of course, individual results can vary, but that speed of improvement could make a big difference for some people.
For sure, especially for those who haven't found relief with other methods.
Absolutely.
Well, while we're talking about the potential of this technology, there's something that's been on my mind. We've been focusing on how electrostimulation affects blood pressure, but I'm curious, are there any effects on other parts of the body? Like if we're stimulating those nerves in the wrist, could it trigger some kind of chain reaction elsewhere?
That's a great question. And to be honest, I don't have a definitive answer. It definitely makes you wonder, though, right? Our bodies are so complex and interconnected.
They are.
So if we're stimulating nerves that are part of this larger network, it's possible there could be other effects we haven't even considered yet.
Right. It's like we're just scratching the surface of what this technology could do.
Exactly, and that's what makes exploring these new frontiers in health tech so exciting. It's about asking questions and pushing the boundaries of what we know.
And being open to the possibilities.
Absolutely. But of course, we also need to proceed with caution and make sure we're using these technologies responsibly and ethically.
Right. Of course. Well, let's bring it back to electrostimulation and hypertension for a moment. We've talked about the science, the potential benefits, and even some of the broader implications. But there's one big question that I think a lot of people are wondering.
Okay, what's that?
We know this technology is promising, but is it actually available? Who can benefit from it right now? And if someone's listening to this and thinking, hey, this sounds like something I want to try, what are their next steps?
Those are all really important questions, and I think the best place to start is by talking to your doctor. They can help you assess whether this technology is right for you, taking into account your individual health history and your current treatment plan.
Right, because it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Exactly. What works for one person might not work for another. And even though the early results are encouraging, more research is needed to fully understand the long-term effects of this type of treatment.
So it's all about having those open and honest conversations with your healthcare provider.
Absolutely. They're your best resource for navigating these new and exciting developments in healthcare.
Well said. Well, I think this is a perfect time to transition into the final part of our deep dive today. We've explored the what, the why, and the how of electrostimulation for hypertension. But now it's time to talk about the so what. What does this all mean for you, the listener, and how can you use this information to make informed decisions about your own health? All right, so we're back and ready to wrap up our electrostimulation deep dive.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to explore this new frontier in hypertension management.
It has, and before the break, we were talking about, the importance of talking to your doctor before trying anything new.
Right. Always consult with your healthcare provider. They're your best resource for making informed decisions about your health.
Absolutely. So let's say you're listening to this and you're intrigued by the idea of electrostimulation. Maybe you're thinking, hey, this could be a good option for me. What are your next steps?
Well, first of all, it's fantastic that you're taking an active interest in your health. That's always the first step.
Yeah, being proactive is so important.
And when it comes to something like electrostimulation, the most important thing is to have an open and honest conversation with your doctor. They can help you weigh the potential benefits and risks.
Right, because as we've discussed, it's not a magic bullet and it might not be suitable for everyone.
Exactly. Everyone's different, and your doctor can help you determine if it's a good fit for you based on your individual circumstances.
Okay, so talk to your doctor. That's step one. What else should people keep in mind?
Well, it's important to remember that this technology is still relatively new. Research is ongoing, and we're still learning more about the long-term effects.
So it's like we're on the cutting edge, but we need to be cautious and informed.
Exactly. It's a balance of excitement and prudence.
I like that. Excitement and prudence. So what would you say is the biggest takeaway from our deep dive today?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we're witnessing a really exciting shift in healthcare. We're moving beyond just monitoring conditions to actually influencing them.
It's like we're becoming active participants in our own healing.
Exactly. And electrostimulation is a great example of that. It's this non-invasive, potentially painless way to tap into our body's natural abilities to regulate blood pressure.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is, and it makes you wonder what other applications we'll see for this technology in the future.
Right. We touched on a few possibilities earlier, like chronic pain management, sleep improvement, even cognitive enhancement.
Yeah, who knows what the future holds? It's an exciting time to be in the health tech space.
It really is. But for now, let's focus on what we know about electrostimulation for hypertension. We've covered a lot of ground today, and I hope our listeners feel more informed and empowered to have those conversations with their doctors.
Me too. Knowledge is power, and the more we understand about these emerging technologies, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions about our health.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine. And to all our listeners out there, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring new possibilities for better health.
That's right. And until next time, keep those conversations going with your healthcare providers and with each other. We're all in this together.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. The CJA.